On the night of our anniversary, my wife's young assistant sent me a photo. A taunt. In the picture, taken in some dimly lit cocktail lounge, my wife, Saraphina, was lying back in his arms. She was feeding him a cherry, straight from her lips to his. Their eyes were locked in a smoldering gaze. The text underneath read, "Don't kid yourself. She doesn't love you. If you had any sense, you'd file for divorce." The next morning, I placed 2 items on the mahogany table in front of her, divorce papers and a Louisville Slugger. I told her to choose. Right in front of me, she chose the bat and broke her assistant's leg with it. "Oh, darling, I know I was wrong," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "Please believe me. You're the only one I love." I had my security detail take the assistant to the best private hospital in the city. Then I paid him a visit and placed 2 items in front of him, a one-way ticket to another country and a knife. "Now," I said, "it's your turn to choose." That evening, I was in my study reviewing documents for an overseas acquisition when Mr. Davies, my executive assistant, knocked urgently on the door. He looked unsettled. "Mr. Sterling." I looked up, my brow furrowing slightly. Davies hesitated, his unease palpable, before turning his phone toward me and playing a video. The scene was a high-end auction house in Manhattan. The woman was my wife of 5 years, Saraphina Vance. The man was a young, handsome nobody. "Sarah," the young man said, his voice a low murmur, "are you sure Holt won't be upset you bought me such an expensive watch?" He feigned humility, but the triumphant glint in his eyes was unmistakable. Saraphina let out a dismissive scoff. "Please, the Sterlings are practically bankrupt. Why does he have to be upset? Besides, what's one watch? You deserve it." I glanced at the watch on Saraphina's own wrist. It was the matching pair, a couple set. How interesting. The video ended there. Sterling Industries was in the middle of a massive restructuring. We were expanding aggressively into overseas markets, which meant divesting from underperforming domestic assets. The moves were substantial, kicking up a storm of speculation on Wall Street. The consensus among the vultures was that the Sterling family's capital was drying up. I never bothered to correct the rumors. I hadn't realized, however, that my own wife had bought into the narrative, that she believed the Sterling name had lost its power, that she could publicly humiliate me without consequence. I played the video again. Then it clicked. The young assistant bore a striking resemblance, maybe 50%, to Ethan, the boy who had been Saraphina's childhood sweetheart, the one who had pulled her from the lake all those years ago, only to be pulled under himself. It was the wound in her heart that had never healed. So, this was a game of finding a stand-in for a ghost. A cliché, but a dangerous one. I looked up at Davies. "Where's my wife now?" He answered cautiously. "She's at the charity auction gala, sir, with her assistant." He paused. "The invitation was for you and Mrs. Sterling. It appears she gave your invitation to him." My face was a stone mask. Sterling Industries was at a critical juncture. I couldn't afford to divert significant resources to crushing Vance Corp just yet. But that didn't mean I was going to let my wife off the hook. I walked into our bedroom and opened Saraphina's safe. Inside was a worn, leather-bound journal. Tucked between the pages was a faded photograph, the only one she had left of her and Ethan. She guarded it like a holy relic, valued it more than her own life. She thought she'd hidden it so well. I'd always known it was there. But Ethan was dead, and I saw no point in being jealous of a ghost. My expression hardened. I called Saraphina's phone twice. Both calls went straight to voicemail. I sent her a text instead. "Saraphina, don't you dare text me back." Silence. Then I took a picture of the precious photograph with my phone and sent it to her. Her reply was instantaneous. "Holt, what the hell do you think you're doing?" Another text followed. "Don't you touch that picture. Whatever this is, we can talk about it calmly." I grabbed my jacket and told Davies we were leaving. On the way to the gala, Saraphina's calls came one after another. I declined every one. As the car pulled up to the curb, I sent her one last message. "Saraphina, you'll do exactly as I say tonight. Or you know what happens." I walked into the gala with Davies at my side. The hum of conversation in the grand ballroom gradually faded. All eyes turned to me. I saw it all. The mockery, the schadenfreude, the shock. A few old acquaintances, of course, plastered on smiles and came over to shake my hand. The rumors of my company's demise were rampant, but surface-level pleasantries had to be maintained. Even a wounded lion is still a lion. Sterling Industries, even with supposed cash flow problems, was a beast no smaller company could afford to provoke. Saraphina's face was pale, her eyes darting around, trying to decipher my plan. Beside her, her little assistant, Kai, wore a smirk of smug satisfaction. I walked straight to the center of the stage, took the microphone, and spoke. My apologies for the interruption. The room fell completely silent. Many of you here old friends. I began, my voice calm and clear. And you all know that Saraphina Vance is my wife. I let that hang in the air. This charity auction and gala tonight was an event I was meant to attend with my wife. But interestingly, she gave my invitation to someone else. I held up the faded photograph, my fingers positioned as if to rip it in two. Saraphina shot to her feet. Oh, calm down. There's nothing between me and Kai. You're just my assistant. This is all a misunderstanding. I gave her a look of pure disdain. Oh, is it a misunderstanding that led you to give him my invitation? A misunderstanding that led you to buy him a watch worth a fortune? And if I'm not mistaken, the ones you're both wearing are a matching set, aren't they? Panic flashed across her face. She fumbled to remove the watch from her wrist. Darling, it's not what you think. I had no time for her pathetic excuses. I want you to walk over there and slap his face, I commanded, my voice cutting through the silence. Twice. I'll give you 10 seconds to think about it. After that, you'll have to live with the consequences. Saraphina's eyes filled with tears of rage and desperation. Oh, you're insane. 10, 9, 8. Every eye in the room was fixed on her, waiting to see what she would do. 6, 5. Ethan was the ghost she could never exorcise. For years, I'd watched her secretly pull out that photograph and mourn. I knew she wouldn't disappoint me. As I expected, she broke. With a strangled cry, she gritted her teeth and swung, her hand cracking across Kai's face. A collective gasp went through the crowd. Kai clutched his cheek, his face a mask of disbelief. How could the woman who had been so tender with him just moments ago strike him in front of everyone? My voice rang out again, cold as ice. Good. Now again. A flicker of pity crossed Saraphina's face, but she struck him again. The sharp slap echoed through the vast hall. Ack! Kai stumbled backward and fell to the floor, his eyes glaring at me with pure venom. The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. The guests watched the drama unfold with a mixture of fascination and contempt. Their gazes, when they turned to Kai, were filled with nothing but scorn. He scrambled to his feet and fled the ballroom. Saraphina started to move, as if to follow, but she didn't dare. The Sterlings and the Vances were practically dynasties in our circles. Our families went way back, and I'd known Saraphina since we were children. She was the undisputed diamond of our set, and I'll admit, in my younger years, I was captivated by her. But everyone knew Saraphina only had eyes for Ethan. It was a tragedy when he died. Saraphina fell into a deep depression. I was the one who stayed by her side, taking her on trips around the world, slowly coaxing her out of the darkness. It took a long time, but she eventually emerged from the shadow of Ethan's death. Unfortunately, she never let me into her heart. After my undergrad, I did my MBA overseas. I assumed that was the end of our story. Then, 5 years ago, she showed up on my doorstep on the other side of the world. Holt, she said, looking more beautiful than ever. I do have feelings for you. Let's get married. For the first time in a long time, I was speechless, because I knew the truth. Vance Corp's credit lines had been frozen. The company was on the verge of collapse. Her family desperately needed the alliance a marriage into the Sterling family would provide. My hesitation lasted only a few seconds. I agreed. Saraphina burst into tears of joy and threw her arms around me. She swore she would love only me for the rest of her life. She would never betray me. And so, we were married. 4 or 5 years, I stood by her, doing my best to be a good husband. But 5 years of companionship, the full weight of Sterling Industries propping up her family's legacy, still wasn't enough to overcome the ghost of a dead boy, even if it meant settling for a cheap imitation. After the spectacle, I offered a brief apology to the room for the disruption, and without a second glance at Saraphina, I left with Davies. About 10 minutes after I got home, she stormed in. "Where's my picture?" she demanded. I looked at her calmly. "Don't you have anything you want to explain to me?" She glared at me, her anger blazing, but it fizzled out in seconds. She sank onto the sofa, a wave of exhaustion washing over her. "Oh, I did what you asked. What more do you want?" I laughed, a cold, humorless sound. "You brought this on yourself, didn't you?" Her eyes flickered away, but she said nothing. My voice grew colder. "Saraphina, don't tell me you felt nothing for him. Do you remember the fit you threw for 3 days when I hired that attractive female assistant? And you? You hire some recent grad as your executive assistant, buy him a 6-figure watch to match your own, and expect me to say nothing? Where's your respect for me? For the Sterling name?" While I was making a scene at the gala, Davies had already done a full background check. Saraphina and Kai had only been involved for a few days. It hadn't escalated to the bedroom. Yet, that was the only reason I was still willing to talk to her. Her face was pale, and she bit her lip silent. I leaned forward, closing the distance between us. I've seen Kai's resume. He has zero relevant experience. How does someone like that become an executive assistant? Tell me, Saraphina, did you really think your precious Ethan had come back to you? Or are you simply bored with our marriage? Her expression finally softened, perhaps out of a flicker of guilt for our shared history. Hold. I know I was wrong. I'll keep my distance from him. I'll get the watch back tomorrow. I stared at her for a long moment, then tossed the photograph back to her. Remember what you said tonight. Saraphina seemed to take my warning to heart. Not only did she get the watch back from Kai, but she also had him demoted to the sales department. But the news of what happened to the gala spread through Vance Corp like wildfire. Just a week ago, Kai had been on top of the world, a promotion, a lavish gift from the CEO. The envy and resentment from his colleagues had been palpable. Now, just as quickly, he was a laughingstock. His life at the company became a living hell. Colleagues whispered and pointed wherever he went. They called him a gold digger, a pretty boy with no talent who tried to sleep his way to the top. Utterly shameless. Kai's fall from grace was swift and brutal. He walked around in a daze, making one mistake after another. Finally, one of his errors cost Vance Corp a major contract. The entire sales department missed its monthly target, meaning smaller bonus checks for everyone. The head of sales, Mark Peterson, was furious. He fired Kai on the spot. HR promptly drew up the termination papers. But Kai didn't leave. Instead, he burst into Saraphina's office and fell to his knees, sobbing. "Sarah, I was wrong. I'll work harder, I promise. Just give me one more chance," he cried. "You know my mother is sick. She needs money for her treatment. I can't lose this job. I know, Mr. Peterson came from Sterling Industries 5 years ago. I've stayed away from you, but Mr. Sterling still won't let me be. I don't know what to do." He crawled toward her and wrapped his arms around her legs, weeping like a child. Saraphina looked down at the face that was a pale imitation of Ethan's, and her expression hardened. She stormed out of her office and into Mark Peterson's. "Mark," she snapped, "who gave you the authority to go after my people?" Peterson stood, looking surprised. "Mrs. Sterling, Kai has made multiple costly errors. He's given the company grounds for termination. I'm simply following company protocol. This is Vance Corp, Mark, not Sterling Industries." Saraphina's voice rose with fury. "You don't decide who gets fired here. Now pack your things and get out." That night, she came to my house, incandescent with rage. "Hold. I can't believe you're this kind of person. Kai is a talented, kind young man. Why are you targeting him like this?" "Well, you listen to me. He's not leaving. Starting tomorrow, he's my executive assistant again. So what if we're married? Don't you dare think you can control me. Your company is circling the drain, but you still act like you're the king of New York. I'm warning you, Holt. Stay away from Kai, or you'll regret it." She slammed the door on her way out. I watched her leave, the disappointment in my eyes absolute. It seemed 5 years of my family support had made the Vances far too comfortable, had inflated Saraphina's ego to this dangerous level. To throw it all away for a boy toy. To stand in front of me and issue threats. Fine. If she wanted to discard our marital vows, I would discard any lingering sentimentality. People, after all, must pay for their mistakes and for their stupidity. The next day, Mark Peterson was in my office. "Mark," I said, "you're now the head of acquisitions at Sterling Industries. You have one objective, dismantle Vance Corp. And don't be gentle." A spark of excitement lit up his eyes. "Yes, Mr. Sterling, I won't let you down." When Vance Corp was on the brink of collapse 5 years ago, their sales division was in shambles. I was the one who personally sent Mark Peterson over to fix it. With dual master's degrees in business management and marketing from an Ivy League school, he was decisive, ruthless, and brilliant. The recent success of Vance Corp was almost entirely his doing. After 5 years there, he knew all their secrets, all their weaknesses. He was the perfect weapon, and now that Sterling's global expansion was complete, I finally had the time to wield it. The day we made our move, Vance Corp was hosting a major business alliance summit. I put on a pair of sunglasses and found an inconspicuous seat in the back. I watched as Saraphina and her father sat on stage, pontificating with Kai standing proudly behind her. The summit's theme was ostensibly about strengthening alliances and fostering cooperation. But everyone knew the real message. Vance Corp was no longer a minor player. It was a force to be reckoned with. With Sterling Industries supposedly on the ropes, the Vances were making a play for the throne. I hope they enjoy the feeling while it lasts, I thought. "Mark," I said into my phone. "Begin." Her father was in the middle of a self-congratulatory answer to a question from the audience, completely oblivious to the fact that his world was about to end. News travels fast, especially among a room full of executives glued to their phones. A murmur started to ripple through the crowd. What's going on? Vance Corp stock is in a free fall. Someone's shorting them. Who do you think? It has to be Sterling. Look who's standing behind Saraphina. Isn't that the pretty boy Holt humiliated at the gala? She has the gall to parade him around in public? That's a direct slap in the face to the Sterling family. Wait, look. Sterling just issued a press release. Everyone thought they were going under, but they just announced their global expansion was a massive success. They posted their quarterly earnings. My God, the growth is exponential. They're stronger than ever. The Vances are finished. Not only did she humiliate Holt, but Sterling is the only major player they didn't invite to this summit. Breaking news, Sterling Industries just announced it's terminating all contracts with Vance Corp. The mood in the room shifted. The whispers grew louder. Saraphina's face turned ashen, then flushed with rage. She slammed her pen down on the table with a loud crack. The ballroom fell silent. Whatever their problems, the Vances still had some clout, and nobody wanted to get caught in the crossfire between them and the Sterlings. Sarah, please don't be angry, Kai whispered, trying to calm her. Her expression softened slightly as she showed her phone to her father. His face went white. All the swagger drained out of him. He forced a tight smile at the audience. Something urgent has come up at the office, he announced, and with that, he and Saraphina hurried off the stage. I watched them flee with a cold smile. The Vances had crawled out of the abyss only because I had thrown them a rope. If they're going to be so arrogant as to forget that, then they should be prepared to be thrown right back in. If they're going to be so arrogant as to forget that, then they should be prepared to be thrown right back in. And this time, I wouldn't wait for them to hit the bottom. Mark Peterson did not disappoint. In just 1 week, Vance Corp's market value was sliced in half. They scrambled for a bailout, calling on their allies for help. But it was useless. No one was willing to offend the newly ascendant Sterling Industries to save the sinking Vances. The same families who had been toasting their success just weeks ago now wouldn't even take their calls. Finally, swallowing their pride, they came to me. Saraphina called me a dozen times a day. I didn't answer once. She came to my office multiple times, but Davies turned her away each time. One evening, as I was leaving Sterling Tower, she cornered me, having waited there for hours. Holt, she said, her voice soft and pleading. You haven't been home in so long. You won't answer my calls. I know I was wrong. I was being foolish. Please, don't be angry with me anymore, okay? Look, I even bought you a gift. She held up a limited edition Patek Philippe, moving to put it on my wrist. My security guards stepped between us, blocking her path. With tensions this high, one can't be too careful. A smirk twisted my lips. Well, my dear wife, you're not giving this watch to your boy toy? You actually remembered me? How rare. Are you disappointed, Saraphina, that my family isn't bankrupt after all? That we're stronger than ever? She had been by my side long enough to know my nature. Seeing the cold contempt in my eyes, she knew I wouldn't let her family off so easily. Fear finally took hold. She gritted her teeth, and in a move that shocked even me, she dropped to her knees on the cold pavement. Holt, I know I was wrong. I acted without thinking about your feelings. We grew up together. We've been married for 5 years. You can't do this to me, she begged. There was nothing real between me and Kai. If you don't like him, I'll fire him when I go back. Holt, please, just give me one more chance. I had given her a chance. She just didn't know how to value it. There's no need. Go home. I, Holt Sterling, do not tolerate betrayal. And everything my family gave yours, I will take back. Twice over. She stared at me, her eyes wide with disbelief. After a long moment, she found her voice. Holt, my family has already paid a price. What more do you want? I've been your wife for 5 years. And even if I had a moment of emotional weakness, I never physically cheated on you. Do you have to be so cruel? I looked at her as if she were an idiot. Once I make a move, I see it through to the end. A lot of thunder with no rain. How boring. The Vances were ungrateful parasites. The moment they thought I was weak, they trampled my family's name in the dirt. Did she really think I would let them get back up, just so they could stab me in the back again? Seeing the cold, final look in my eyes, she panicked. Holt, it's all my fault. Please, don't be angry. Punish me however you want, just spare my family. I swear, we will never do anything to disrespect the Sterlings again. I'll fire Kai the moment I get back. I'm begging you. I ignored her. Surrounded by my security, I got into my car and was driven away. In the rearview mirror, I could still see her, kneeling stubbornly on the sidewalk. Over the next few weeks, Saraphina sent a steady stream of gifts to my office. Custom-tailored suits, a rare sports car, a sapphire necklace. More gifts than she had given me in the past 5 years combined. Kai, however, remained her executive assistant. attending to her every need. But Saraphina never showed him a shred of kindness again. She continued to text me every day, pleading and apologizing, but she never received a response. Her temper grew shorter and shorter. Rumor had it she slapped Kai frequently. She was drowning in the chaos at work, but Vance Corp showed no signs of recovery. Finally, Saraphina was forced to accept reality. Without the Sterling's support, her family could have survived. But with the Sterlings actively working against them, they stood no chance. As her company plummeted toward oblivion, she painfully fired Kai. The scene, I was told, was dramatic. He refused to leave, screaming and crying as his former colleagues watched with cold detachment, some openly mocking him. On that day, what little dignity Kai had left was ground into the dust. Then Saraphina got smart. She started a campaign of indirect warfare. She and her father began visiting my parents, begging for forgiveness. My father and hers went way back. As angry as my parents were, they couldn't completely turn their backs on old family friends. After the Vance's third visit, my parents finally relented and called me home. I agreed to stop the active assault on Vance Corp. Her family's company had earned a rare moment to breathe. Saraphina returned to her role as the perfect, dutiful wife. She sent me warm, caring texts every day and insisted on having lunch delivered to my office. It was infuriatingly persistent. I never touched her, and I never returned to our marital home. Between the global expansion and dismantling the Vance empire, Sterling Industries had been operating at a frantic pace. 3 months passed like this. Then came our wedding anniversary. For once, she didn't text me. I was tired of playing the part of the devoted husband, so I didn't give it a second thought. I never expected Kai to be the one to get in touch. He sent me a photo, a provocation. It was taken in a bar. Saraphina was lying in his arms, feeding him a cherry with her mouth. Their eyes were locked together, a thread of intimacy connecting them. The text underneath read, "You didn't really think it was over between us, did you? She doesn't love you. If you have any sense, you'll file for divorce." I understood Kai's motives perfectly. First, he was humiliated by me on 2 separate occasions, and his fragile ego was desperate to reclaim some sense of power. Second, he thought he could provoke me into walking away, clearing the path for him to take my place. He was still so young, so foolish. He didn't understand that in the world of high-stakes marriages, love can be optional, but respect is not. By taunting me directly, he was signing his own death warrant. If they wanted to dance with the devil, I would be happy to send them both to hell. I forwarded the photo directly to Saraphina. "Bring him to me tomorrow, or you know what happens." So, it had only been 3 months. Her company had barely stabilized, and she was already bored, already thought she was untouchable again. The next day, Saraphina appeared. Kai was with her, forced to his knees by 2 of my security guards. His face bore the clear imprint of a fresh slap. All the arrogance from his text messages was gone, replaced by pure, trembling fear. "Mr. Sterling, I was wrong," he whimpered. "I couldn't get over the humiliation. I wasn't thinking straight. You're a bigger man than me. I'll leave. I'll disappear. You'll never see me or Mrs. Sterling again." I didn't even look at him. My gaze was fixed on Saraphina. I pushed 2 items across the table toward her, a document and a thick wooden club. "Saraphina," I said, my voice flat, as if discussing the weather. "Those are divorce papers, and that is a club. The choice is yours." In just a few words, the color drained from Kai's face. He struggled against the guards, but he was powerless. Saraphina kept her head down, her mind racing. When she looked up again, her eyes were filled with a cold resolve. She slowly reached for the thick wooden club. Her grip tightened, and a vicious glint appeared in her eyes. A small smile played on my lips. I said nothing, just leaned back, ready to enjoy the show. Kai's face was a mask of terror. "Mr. Sterling, I swear, nothing has happened between me and her. Not physically. Sarah, Mr. Sterling, I was wrong. Please, let me go. I'll never do it again. I had ideas I shouldn't have, please." He began to kowtow, banging his head on the floor. I offered a helpful reminder. "Kai, whether you're let go or not is up to her. All she has to do is sign those divorce papers, and I won't lay a hand on either of you today." Kai looked at Saraphina, stunned, then scrambled to grab the hem of her pants. "Sarah, did you hear that? Just sign the papers, and he'll leave us alone. Sarah, I'll be your dog for the rest of my life." Saraphina slapped him hard across the face. "You think you're worth anything, Kai? You were a toy. And let me tell you something. I will never divorce Holt Sterling." She raised the club, her face an expressionless mask. "Don't blame me for this, Kai. Blame yourself for provoking him. You brought this on yourself." She leaned in closer, And don't worry. If you behave, I'll make sure your family is taken care of. I gave her a second glance. That last line was a naked threat. With that, Saraphina swung the heavy club, bringing it down hard on Kai's right leg. Ack! She struck him again and again, 7 or 8 times, until the leg was a mangled, unnatural shape. Breathing heavily, she dropped the club and looked at me. Hold, darling, I've dealt with him. I admit things got a little intimate with Kai, but I swear I never slept with him, she panted. I'll never do it again. I swear from now on, I will only love you. I remained silent. Gritting her teeth, she took a step forward and brought the sharp heel of her stiletto down hard on Kai's groin, grinding it back and forth. Aha! The room filled with his guttural, pig-like squeals. The thick, coppery smell of blood was nauseating. His third leg was now completely destroyed. He glared at Saraphina with an expression of pure, unadulterated hatred. Her face darkened, and she looked ready to strike again, but I held up a hand. That's enough. I turned to my assistant. Mr. Davies, take him to the Sterling Private Hospital. Make sure he doesn't die. A month later, I visited the finest private hospital in Manhattan. When Kai saw me, his eyes filled with a primal fear. His entire body trembled. Mr. Sterling, I've already paid for my mistake. Are you still not going to let me go? I looked at his terrified face and smiled faintly. He was still so young. He'd had a taste of our world of limitless wealth and thought that by latching on his Saraphina, he could climb his way to the top. But he never learned the rules of the game. He had only himself to blame for his current state. Kai, if I wanted you gone, there are 100 ways I could make you disappear from this world. I wouldn't have wasted my time coming here to see you, I said conversationally. But that would be so boring. How about we play a little game? He froze, watching me with suspicion. I placed a plane ticket and a dagger on the bedside table, my smile turning demonic. The choice is yours. His pupils constricted. He stammered. What do you mean? Your leg has been treated. It'll heal, more or less. But your other appendage is completely ruined. And Saraphina is the one who did that to you. Tell me, don't you hate her, even a little? As I expected, a dark, venomous look began to brew in his eyes. It wasn't surprising. No man could accept becoming a eunuch overnight, especially not a young man like him who relied on his looks for a living. It was a fate worse than death. Rest assured, I continued, I may not be a good person, but I am a man of my word. No matter what you choose, I will give your family a sum of money that will ensure they live comfortably for the rest of their lives. And I can guarantee their safety. Without waiting for his decision, I stood up and walked out. Over the past few months, my plans for Vance Corp had come to fruition. Sterling Industries had completely severed all ties. When my parents had pleaded on their behalf, I had paused my assault, primarily because our two companies were so deeply intertwined that a sudden, brutal separation would have caused my own company significant losses. This time, however, there would be no pause. The strike was like lightning. There would be no chance for them to catch their breath. Vance Corp's stock plummeted again. Their business partners, almost in unison, announced they were canceling all existing contracts. I had, of course, already secretly signed new agreements with all of them. They seamlessly transitioned their business to Sterling's various subsidiaries. Suppliers began to show up at the Vance Corp headquarters, demanding payment, surrounding the building. Banks issued public notices of defaulted loans. Within a week, Vance Corp's capital chain was completely broken. Saraphina blew up my phone until I finally, reluctantly, agreed to see her. The moment she saw me, she fell to her knees. Hold, you said you forgave me. Why are you still doing this to my family? I took a sip from my glass of red wine, then poured the rest of it over her head. Saraphina, I asked calmly, do you think I'm an idiot? Humiliation flashed in her eyes, but she didn't move, letting the dark red liquid drip down her face and onto her expensive clothes. If you had just played around with Kai a little, maybe I would have forgiven you, I said, grabbing her chin and forcing her to look at me. My voice was cold. You stood there and swore to me that you never slept with him. But he confessed everything. Do you need me to tell you exactly how many times you were in bed together? She finally broke. She scrambled forward, grabbing at my pants. Old, I was wrong. It was a moment of weakness. I just made a mistake any woman could make. Forgive me this one time. I'll never do it again. I didn't even look at her. I tossed a folder onto the floor in front of her. Sign the divorce papers, Saraphina. You leave with nothing. This is the last chance I'm giving you. She stared at me, her eyes wide. Hold. I was with you for 5 years. You're really going to be this heartless? We had a prenuptial agreement. Sterling Industries had never been her asset. But over the 5 years of our marriage, I had acquired numerous private assets, and I had no intention of sharing a single cent. I scoffed, my patience wearing thin. Saraphina, the bankruptcy of Vance Corp is a foregone conclusion. If I were you, I'd sign those papers quickly. If I'm feeling generous, I might let your family escape this country with some of their personal wealth. Otherwise, you can all spend the rest of your lives living in hell. She snapped her head up, her eyes filled with dawning horror. Oh, that VSA we signed with the Zhao family in Kyoto. That was you, wasn't it? You set this trap for us from the beginning. That's right, I said. The moment I learned about Kai, I contacted the Zhaos. I had them change the contract to a variable share agreement. You know me, Saraphina. I don't tolerate filth in my world. Under normal circumstances, Vance Corp could have fulfilled the terms of the agreement. But now, once the Zhaos filed their lawsuit, the Vances were looking at a $3 billion hit. In their current state, they would never recover. Saraphina's face went white, and she collapsed on the floor. She finally understood the magnitude of her mistake. She had been dealt a winning hand, and, because of Kai, had played it into ruin, bringing her entire family down with her. The regret was eating her alive. I was done talking. I tossed the divorce papers at her again. She had no choice. With a trembling hand, she signed her name. A month later, Vance Corp officially declared bankruptcy. Mr. Davies came into my office to report that Saraphina had been taken by Kai. The location was an abandoned warehouse. How could I miss the final act of their tragic love story? I arrived with my security team just as the drama was peaking. Saraphina was on her knees, a knife held to her throat by Kai. When she saw me, the last glimmer of hope in her eyes died. Holt, she screamed, her voice cracking. I know I was wrong. Please, save me. I'll do anything you want. She was weeping hysterically, begging me. I'm sorry, Holt. I'm so sorry. I knew she finally understood her mistake, but it was far too late. Holt, I'm sorry. I truly regret everything. The person I love has always been you. It's just, I could never get over Ethan's death, so I looked for a substitute. Holt, let me go, and I'll disappear forever. I'll go abroad. I'll never bother you again, please. She was sobbing, her body racked with grief. But I felt nothing, because she had a hole in her heart. She was entitled to betray me. I gave her chances. She threw them away, again and again. Saraphina, I said calmly, Kai finding you here today was his idea. It has nothing to do with me. Whether you live or die is up to him. You should be begging him. I paused, adding a thoughtful note. I like to help, of course. But he has a knife, and my men can't risk rushing in. But don't worry. For the sake of our past marriage, I called 911 on the way here. Whether you survive until they arrive, well, you'll have to pray. Ignoring her desperate screams, I turned and walked away with my men. The police arrived not long after. I read in the news later that Kai had stabbed Saraphina 13 times. Miraculously, she was saved by the paramedics. She survived, but she was paralyzed. Her mind was clear, but she couldn't speak or move. She would spend the rest of her life in a bed. When the police arrived, Kai resisted arrest and was shot and killed on the spot. Sometimes I go to the hospital to visit her. She's my ex-wife, after all, and I've always had a soft heart. She gets very emotional. Every time she sees me, she weeps with tears of what I can only assume is gratitude.